What's up, everybody? It is Anti-Negative here with another video podcast, and yeah, so happy holidays. We're going to be talking about some stuff today about Standard, as well as a few things about Arena, and just kind of talking about some things just going on. So yeah, let's get into it. First thing we're going to talk about today is Standard meta update. So last we left off, we were talking about Worlds, and we are talking about how things kind of shaped up for Worlds in general, like the not really the birth of the Is It Lessons deck, because that was kind of a thing already, but the rise of Gran and the kind of downfall of the Badger Mole decks. So what's happening on Arena Ladder, what's happening on the challenges, what's happening on MTGO is that everything's kind of balancing out. Everything is kind of taking a turn of like what feels best for the day. Is It Lessons has kind of petered off just a little bit, although there are some challenges as of today where Is It Lessons kind of dominating still. But what's really cool about this version of Is It meta is that we have a few different versions of Is It still. Even though Is It Lessons, might be the more, I would guess, like controlling version of Is It, just so it can like combat all the different creature decks in the meta. Mainly because it just has the best removal right now. Mono black and just black decks in general are kind of struggling with a lot of just early removal in general. One mana removal does not exist in a very efficient way right now in black, and it's really skewing the meta a lot towards red. So we have mono red taking a turn, as well as all the Is It decks just kind of like being well positioned against both Badger Mole stuff, tempo things, mid-range things. So yeah, Is It Lessons still pretty good. Definitely way more beatable as of right now, because once people kind of knew like Lessons were kind of a graveyard deck, people are now packing in like Soul Guide Lantern, or playing Rest in Peace main. I know a lot of the control decks are playing that, so Jeskai and blue-white control are kind of like more playable than they were in previous metas. So Jeskai is still very playable. But yeah, so Rest in Peace main in both of those decks, as well as maybe some Soul Guide Lanterns if they need it. Which is not really the case if you're playing Rest in Peace main. Really, like, what that indicates is that Sultai Reanimator is also pretty good. So I was playing that for a bit, and kind of just fell off for me, mainly because everybody's kind of packing that main board, and the other matchups that you can really beat, which is like all the Badger Mole decks. Airbending combo has kind of fallen off like I wouldn't say a cliff, but it's definitely fallen off a lot. Mainly because it does really struggle into the red base removal decks, because you need to be able to stick your Doc Orlock, or else you just can't do anything. So if you don't have that, you're kind of just like waiting way too long, and you kind of lose to a lot of the Is It stuff. So Is It looting and Is It Lessons definitely higher up in that tier there. Mainly because they can run the Soul Guide Lanterns and then, answer all the other decks. So Is It looting? Probably one of my personal favorites out of all those. I actually prefer to play that right now in the ladder, which is weird. I mean, I'm not personally like super averted to playing Is It decks. I definitely haven't liked the way Is It was over the last 6 months, with being like straight up tier 0. So it was like boring to play. But Is It looting and Lessons are a lot different from that. What's funny about Is It Lessons is that it is almost a budget brew. I mean, after Worlds, Artist Talent and Monument to Endurance both shot up a lot, so it pretty much capped that deck around like $400. Although like before that, it was around like $200 to $300, which was moderately good. But now, yeah, it's kind of around everything else, which is kind of cool. I think the overall meta right now is like kind of at a 300 to about 400 $8 per deck cap. And then everything else that is like more affordable is going to be the aggro stuff. And then we also have Dimir midrange, which unironically, Dimir midrange is not even bad right now. I've checked a lot of these different decks in the meta right now. And what's weird is Worlds did not want to play Dimir midrange because it doesn't do well against go wide stuff. That was kind of the big issue with Dimir midrange, is that like you're just kind of losing game one if you don't have all of your removal lined up for it. So you really do have to like kind of expect that you're going to hit a go wide deck when you're playing Dimir midrange. Like if I was to give any advice on how to play Dimir midrange right now, is to probably keep a hand that has some type of early removal. So Stab is the best 1 mana interaction for Dimir midrange right now. So if you don't know your matchup, you probably should just lean towards like, okay, well, what hand do I need to keep for my worst matchup? And that is the Badger Mole go wide stuff, because once like a Ouroboros lands game one, like you're just kind of, you don't have anything for that. So like you have to tap stuff down. You can't, there's no bounce stuff in the Dimir mid-range list. And yeah, you're just kind of at the mercy of that. So this is one of the cheaper decks in the meta right now. It's probably, I would say, maybe a step up above Mono Red, which is still around like 180 right now, just kind of normally. And I've seen a lot of the Mono Red stuff kind of leaning into different strategies right now too, but let's keep it on Dimir midrange. So Dimir midrange is kind of like leaning towards the Kaido stuff still. Same exact deck, really nothing has changed that much. It's just really like how you're going to play your early turns out is really like how Dimir midrange has to play right now. So you can't really, keep a hand that doesn't answer Badger Mole. You're not so much worried about the is it kind of lessons deck as much as you are worried about Badger Mole decks, because is it lessons is much of it's like a much slower game plan in general. And you can actually answer a lot of the stuff that Isn't Lessons is trying to do post sideboard. Like you have annuls, duress, intimidation tactics, negates. So things like that. Even Raven Eagle has actually popped up in like playability here. A lot of different decks are kind of employing this in order to like exile stuff from the graveyard and just kind of like be like a moderate tempo piece. People were comparing it to Graveyard Trespasser early on. I don't think it's that level at all. Also Day Night, not the same kind of thing, but yeah, Dimir midrange is actually not that bad right now. In terms of like, you know, how to play against Badger Mole decks, again, you have to expect that's what you're playing. Keep your game one hand expecting that type of deck. Of course, if it's not that, if it's Is It Lessons, if it's control, sure, you might be able to take that loss, I guess. Hopefully it's not just all removal and no like tempo pieces. But essentially my whole point here is answer the first Badger Mole and then you can kind of play your game from there. And that means that you just have at least one piece of interaction in general. And that's kind of all you're looking for. So yeah. So as long as you have that, you'll probably be pretty well off. Other than that, you know, Bitter Triumph, Essence Scatter, Shoot the Sheriff, those are kind of the main board pieces now. So yeah, you just want to kind of like play around that stuff if you're going to play Dimir midrange at all. It's not really my cup of tea for the most part right now, but it is definitely still up there. I know that Goldfish rates it pretty high, and I'm seeing it in pretty much all the challenges still like top 8. And it's like one of the cheaper decks both on MTGO and in paper. And I mean, if you've been playing for last year, Dimir midrange is the only deck other than maybe like Jeskai that has really kind of stood the test of time in terms of like what the designers kind of projected for this 3-year standard. And that, you know, is mainly because nothing has been touched in the deck. No large shifts had to happen. And you haven't had to like refill your entire paper deck with brand new purchase pretty much every set. And that is something that they wanted for the 3-year standard. You wanted like little Timmy to like buy one deck for like 1 to 2 years and then be pretty cool on that. That was one of the reasons why they didn't want to ban stuff out of the mono red aggro list, because again, budget friendly and easier to pilot. So it was both of those things that made us have to deal with this mono red deck for so long until it got banned. That's one of the reasons why, you know, the whole ecosystem for standard right now is a little bit volatile because, you know, people don't know how long certain cards are going to be legal, and people are just kind of like expecting everything that's good to get banned because that's kind of what people immediately go to most of the time. Hence why everybody was calling for Badger Mole to get banned, because they expect themselves to be heard on some of that stuff. And it's like, if the data doesn't show that Badger Mole is clearly the best deck, then it just won't be banned. And essentially that's what happened. We talked about Is It in the past, if you've listened to some of these podcasts before. The big reason why Is It is so good, essentially why it's like a Hydra right now, it's like you cut one head off and 2 more pop up, is because of the sum of the parts, and that's why Is It has been good in the past. So when design team chooses to print a bunch of really cheap, efficient draw spells on top of like both prowess creatures, etc., you know, it'll just kind of like all sum up into this situation where you have like, you know, everybody, you know, just has a very efficient package to kind of churn through their deck and then also win the game. So, you know, with control decks, they're usually like the ones who are able to like answer everything you do, wipe the board while like drawing a bunch of cards. But they're not winning the game per se. And that's why Jeskai is kind of the better one of those options right now, because they have things like Shiko, Meringue River Regent to actually close out the game. And yeah, there's some other versions of that stuff right now, like Azula decks. You know, those aren't really high tier, maybe tier 2 at best. But yeah. So anyways, yeah, I'm not so down on the Is It decks right now because they are very beatable. Other than Is It lessons, you really do have to like kind of worry about just creatures in general for pretty much every deck. So control is at a more playable version of itself than ever, including like Jeskai control having, you know, Rest in Peace and a bunch of other answers in main. Cool thing about Rest in Peace is that you're, you know, wiping their graveyard. So if they want to do something that like answers, you know, the hate piece that you put down, yeah, they still have to rebuild. So it's not a direct answer. That was one of the reasons why 4-color Reanimator, or, you know, just Sultai Reanimator, was pretty good, was they had Awaken of the Honored Gods. And so they were able to like actually just blow up the Rest in Peace and then kind of move on from there. No problem for them just getting through any of the hate pieces. But yeah, now everybody just kind of has that stuff, and it makes it a little bit harder for the reanimator decks to just kind of get through that, since now they have to worry about that for everybody, and then they also just have to like worry about their own deck RNG. So, you know, that's why the leyline decks as well, which is like the aggro leyline decks where they copy a bunch of spells, they have to worry about their own RNG and then also worry about the opponent that they're going for. So it does require a ton of skill in order to like balance those two things. You have to manage your own RNG while managing what the opponent's doing to answer your board, and then play around that effectively. So yeah. So anyways, meta is pretty balanced right now. Badger Mole decks, it's still the most expensive thing in standard, although the price of Badger Mole has gone down, I wouldn't say significantly, but enough where it's mildly affordable. Everything is around like $50 per Badger Mole, which is, it kind of fluctuates. Sometimes it's 50, sometimes it's 60. So bottom line, you're kind of looking at $200 for a playset of those cards, which is not very good. Again, you know, I'm not really a big supporter of 2-mana mythics, or just mythics being, I don't know, existing. Because like if there's a mythic that's playable, it's going to be 4 of. Badger Mole is probably the most playable mythic in the last, 3 months compared to Quantum Riddler. So yeah, everybody wants it. Commander wants it. Modern wants it. I think some people are messing around Pioneer with it. Legacy. So it's just a really broken card. Anytime you have a mana dork that's 1 mana, or, in any kind of form, making it tap for 2 is pretty good. Doesn't matter if it's earthbending or not. So yeah. Anyways, kind of moving on from there, let's talk a little bit more about Arena. So there's been a little bit of controversy again towards Arena and Arena Direct that I've been seeing going around right now. And I actually talked about this like a few months ago. I got a little bit of hate for it. People weren't really super supportive of my take, which is totally fine. People are valid for their opinions and stuff like that. Like, if you have any opinions about this, be sure to share with me whatever you feel about it. But yeah, Arena Direct is back in, I wouldn't say headlines, but back in people's feeds with it being kind of a scam. And I've said this in the past about it being a scam. Personally, I don't ever buy Arena Direct or play it, mainly because it's really obvious that it is a scam. And this has not been like unknown to people. It was mostly with people outside of the US that weren't getting their payouts for the most part. And then Arena support customer service team just being kind of like overloaded with people with the same issue. And so therefore, it doesn't matter who you are, you just don't get responses. So a lot of people back in July, I believe this is when they ran this this event, which I thought was pretty crazy because the demand for Final Fantasy was insane. So the fact that they were running this Arena Direct for collector boxes of Final Fantasy, I was really surprised that it was being ran in general. But yeah, we saw that happen, and a lot of people were investing about $50 to $60 in order to enter this Arena Direct event. And if you got 7 wins, I believe you won 2 boxes, or this was the collector one, so I think it was just for 1 box. I'm not sure. I can be corrected on that for sure. But yeah, a lot of people won a bunch of boxes, and they ended up not getting paid out in their boxes because obviously WotC ran out of product almost immediately. So I'm not sure if anybody got any significant amount of boxes. If they did, they got paid out maybe in a couple. But yeah, so if you know Final Fantasy and you're a collector or just aware of how much this costs in the market, it is like $1,000 to $1,200 a box of this stuff. So, and it was that much during that time as well. So they put this up knowing that they, would cost this much, and essentially just kind of bait everybody into playing it. And what happened was, again, they didn't have any product to kind of turn this around. And now a bunch of people, the big news is that somebody won 7 boxes and then received an email saying that they're getting paid out for $455. And while that might be a lot of money for their investment, they won 7 boxes, and MSRP for 1 box is $455. So if they're only getting paid out for 1, where do the rest of the 7 boxes go? So not only that, it's just, this person is now not getting 7 boxes. That's $7,000 worth of product that they're now not getting. And they're now receiving only 1 box worth of payout. And this is not just from this person. This is from a lot of different people, including people like LSV, who's a, pretty well-known pro player, who's also just not getting any response. And I believe he won like 3 boxes or something like that. And he's getting no contact whatsoever. This is kind of the similar thing that a lot of people are getting with this, is they're just getting no response. And around this time, around like, I guess winter break, holiday break, people will not be in the office, so it'll just be really hard to get a response in general. So if you're looking for that payout around Christmas time, etc., or just the holidays in general, probably not going to happen. But yeah, so yeah, just really, really bad luck on Wizards of the Coast with this one and Arena in general. I've definitely recommended people don't, invest into the Arena Directs in general. A lot of people still do it anyways because they think they're a good, limited player, whatever. It doesn't matter. Like, a lot of people just end up getting farmed by pro players, farming packs on this stuff. Hence, people like LSV actually like going and loading up Arena just to play for some boxes. And a lot of people do this. Even if those people have to still like invest more, even after you do win, even after you farm a bunch of people who think they're gonna, beat pro players and they don't, you don't even get your payouts. So, there is fine print terms and conditions with when you play this kind of stuff. They don't have to give you the actual collector box if they don't have supplies, because it's as supplies last. But what they do have to do is pay you out. So they do have a time period in which they can pay you out for this type of stuff. So I would imagine within the next couple months, which has been the case with every Arena Direct over the last 2 years. Again, mostly with people who were not in US, just straight up being completely gaslighted because they didn't qualify to play this stuff. And they've since kind of changed the ability to play Arena Direct in those places so they didn't get in trouble. But yeah, so in general, bad use of your money to go and play the Arena Directs. If you feel like you're gonna, make more than you're putting in, I would just pretty much never expect that. Always expect like their risk here is probably lower than the payout they're going to be getting. So if they're getting like millions of dollars from people just kind of like dropping money and kind of burning a hole in their pocket to play a bunch of these, because again, it was $50 to enter one draft for this. That's not for a bunch of drafts. It's just one, which is why I won't touch this stuff. That's probably, one of the biggest reasons why I won't touch buying packs in general for a while until something changes, because, we look at the collector boxes for Final Fantasy and those cost $1,000 to $1,200. And then every other collector box is now down. Avatar and Spider-Man are both $100 below MSRP right now. And yeah, that's just pretty much, they don't have any value in them. That's essentially what is happening. And I don't know if Wizards wants that, because they, even reported good numbers again with Spider-Man. It's just like, that's impossible unless all you're accounting for is the amount of boxes you sold to vendors or large buyers. And essentially that's what happened. They just had a lot of people, investing in the Spider-Man, so they're going to report record profits again. Like, well, we did our number, so I guess Spider-Man was a hit, and they're just going to turn a blind eye to the entire community being like, these are unplayable, these are garbage. And obviously the designers are not going to turn a blind eye to that. But yeah, we're going to get more Universe Beyond next year, and we're going to get more sets. So just kind of expect the same thing next year. And essentially, if you see Arena Direct, I would steer clear from it. I wouldn't touch it. They just did one that was for like Kamigawa, which I thought was pretty weird. But I mean, given what's in Kamigawa for older formats, Channel Lands, Boseiju, etc., there's a bunch of good cards for both Modern, Pioneer, Modern, not Modern twice, but Commander, Pioneer, Modern, maybe even Legacy, Channel Lands, pretty good. And I would say that's about it. I don't think people really had a problem with that one because not many people invested into that. I remember watching some people play some of those events, and they were having trouble finding matches on Arena. So anyways, I just wanted to kind of briefly talk about that. Again, I don't really care because I didn't invest in that stuff. But if you were going to invest into Arena Direct in the future, again, I would just probably recommend that you don't, because why give them more money to scam you and other people in the future? I would rather contribute to the analytics of hey, people don't want to buy this because, you know, we're not giving the incentive correct. And as long as they don't pay people out within the allotted amount of time and actually pay people out in general, yeah, I don't think we should be giving them time or money, because that's a lot of time for people to farm 7 boxes and then just not get any money whatsoever. You know, it's like bro's missing $2,000+ not to mention that if he had just gotten the boxes, he would have $7,000. So, you know, really not a good look. I don't recommend it. And yeah, just in general, just talking about where Magic's at right now in general for like competitive and constructed, a lot of people are not really feeling too comfy on it. So, you know, I would just keep everything at arm's length right now. I'm gonna prep for next RC season, that kind of stuff. Probably gonna participate a bit in it, and yeah, we'll see how things kind of turn around here. Again, standard meta is not too bad right now, but as a whole, Magic's all right. It'll be fine. Just yeah, don't waste your money. You know, keep your money safe and don't invest too hard into these products, because they don't really seem to be giving right now in terms of both playability or just, you know, consumer satisfaction. Like, quality of the stuff is at an all-time low with some of the collector stuff. So yeah. Anyways, it's kind of what I want to talk about today. A little bit of a standard meta update and talk about some arena stuff. But yeah, if you have any thoughts, questions, concerns about the arena direct stuff, I'd love to hear them. If you're playing a kind of niche deck like maybe green white, which is kind of coming up in the standard meta, you know, love to hear about that too. Other than that, have a good holiday, and I'll see you soon. Gonna be starting to stream a bunch more on Twitch and stuff, so hopefully see you around. All right.